When I first started in sales, I went to work with Xerox out in the Middle East. Now, I didn't know anything about sales. However, I got my sales training. And then I went out and spoke to customers, and the first person said to me, "Okay, fantastic, can you do me a proposal?" Now, I remember I went back to my office and I sat there. I was paralysed. I didn't know what to do because I had no internal reference about how you did a business proposal. I had never done that before. And I had a fabulous secretary, and she watched me. And I remember this so clearly. She moved over and she went to the bookcase. She brought out a file. She put the file in front of me and she said, "You may want to have a look at some of the proposals people have done before." Now, I was actually operating at that point of time from a totally external pattern, because we have external and internal. When you're operating from an external, it means you have no internal reference. You need feedback. It's impossible to do anything because you're frightened of making a mistake. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing because inside here, there's no reference whatsoever. And when someone is highly internal, in other words, they've got total reference, it's easy for them. They don't take constructive feedback because they know what's happening. So that is the difference. The fundamental difference between someone who is external is they cannot move until they get feedback. They need to know exactly where they are. Now, the lovely thing about the difference between internal and external is when someone starts something, when someone's learning something, very often they're external. For those of you who drive, think about the first time you learned to drive. You're always checking with your instructor. You're checking, am I doing it okay? Am I fine? If you learn a new task, am I fine? Is this okay? However, as your skills grow, as your confidence grows, you don't have to keep checking externally. So this particular pattern very much works on experience. When someone starts something, they can be very external and require lots of external feedback. However, as they get more and more and more experience about what they're doing, they just know inside themselves. So that's the difference between the external and the internal. Now, the question to ask to identify whether someone is internal or external is to ask, how do they know when they've done a good job? Because someone who is absolutely internal, someone who knows within themselves, who doesn't require any external validation, will be able to tell you because, and they'll start giving you a whole list of reasons, because I knew I did well, because I knew this was going to be right, and they'll talk about I. A person who's actually working from an external reference will start to tell you, I got great feedback from my customers. My manager was really pleased at what I did. So by actually listening, where are they getting their validation from? How are they able to know that they've done a good job? They will either know inside themselves or they will require to get feedback. So it becomes very, very important you listen to the two, because if you have people in your team that are very, very internal and you're asking them for feedback or giving them feedback constantly, you'll annoy them. Also, if you have people that are highly external in your team and you're not giving them feedback, they're paralysed. They're sitting there in their own mind going, am I doing right? I don't know how to do this. I'm not quite sure, because they need to have checks all the time. So it's understanding that difference by the language. You'll very quickly hear the people that talk about the I, or the people that talk about the other people externally to themselves, where they get the feedback from. Now, the interesting thing about the internal and external, 40% of people roughly are external and 40% of people are internal. However, there's a 20% in the middle there, and that 20%, they are capable of being both internal and external, which means that they are able to actually take feedback but also know inside themselves when they've done something well. When we go to the 40% external, very often at the really extreme of this scale, they have to get lists. You have to actually prepare a list of things for them to tick off. They need to be checking from outside of themselves where they are and how they're doing something. And also at the very extreme end of your internal, they can be so internal, so sure of what they're doing, that it's almost impossible for them to take any sort of outside, either constructive criticism or take on ideas, because they know. So it's becoming aware of that on both angles. But what you're looking at here is the fact that it's actually split. There's a good split, 40% here, 40% there. True business leaders, true leaders, they're able to do the 20% so they can go one way and the other way simultaneously.